Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today for the e-launching of full-fledged Islamic Bank module, a real case study. And we will also have a forum on the topic Repositioning Islamic Banks post-COVID-19 here in Agrobank's Facebook Live. My name is Ybhg and I am your MC for today's event. Ladies and gentlemen, today Agrobank marks another milestone as we take a step further in providing our expertise beyond banking. And today's event is a testament to this aspiration. Today's event is the continuation from the introductory session of pre-launch and preview of full-fledged Islamic Bank module, a real case study, which was held on the 11th of November 2020 last week. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's event, we will have two separate sessions. First session is the launch of full-fledged Islamic Bank module, a real case study, followed by the forum titled Repositioning Islamic Banks post-COVID-19, featuring top-of-the-line speakers and experts. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we will invite Puan Khadijah Iskandar, the covering President and Chief Executive Officer Agrobank, to give her speech and subsequently launch the full-fledged Islamic Bank module, a real case study. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Puan Khadijah Iskandar.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon to all. Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, all praises to Allah with His kindness. We are given this opportunity to virtually gather via this webinar platform. On behalf of Agrobank, I would like to thank everyone for joining this webinar for the e-launching of our full-fledged Islamic Bank module. This event marks a new milestone for us in continuing our aspirations to play a greater role in the development of Islamic finance in Malaysia. The Islamic finance industry faces unprecedented challenges caused by the headwinds due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic will have a more severe and deeper impact on Islamic finance markets, as the current crisis is affecting small and medium enterprises or SMEs as well as low-income earners. Nevertheless, COVID-19 is also shifting the dynamics in the industry, and outbreak may create new opportunities for Islamic finance industry by accelerating trends on fintech and beyond banking solutions. Given the current pandemic situation, it is the time for the industry to elevate the fundamentals of Sharia to realize its full promise. The business models of Islamic financial institutions should be guided by the overarching objectives of Sharia or Maqasid Sharia, which are to preserve and advance the common interests of society at large by preventing harm and maximizing benefits. This is now more important than ever to steer growth and development on a more sustainable path. In Malaysia, the industry, with the support of central bank, is taking concrete steps to drive strategies aimed at increasing the positive impact of finance on society. As a development finance institution mandated for agriculture sector, Agrobank is strongly committed to building financial accessibility and inclusivity within the agriculture community, which is predominantly in the rural areas. We believe this will be a powerful catalyst for economic growth while empowering individuals and the community to better their lives. Since its corporation, Agrobank has accelerated its offering of Islamic banking products and services under its Islamic banking window. Agrobank's transition to a full-fledged Islamic bank is seen as a positive development based on the rapid growth of the Islamic banking sector in Malaysia. This transition is in line with the government's target to increase Islamic financing up to 40% of total financing by 2020. With this transition, the bank is able to provide Islamic banking products and funding to cater for the halal food industry. Operating as full-fledged Islamic bank, Agrobank aims to provide Sharia-compliant products and services to the agriculture community, as well as supporting the government's initiative to establish Malaysia as a global hub for Islamic finance and the halal industry. In discharging our mandated role in developing the agriculture sector as an engine of growth and in ensuring its sustainability, we look to strengthen our presence and support in the value chain of the agriculture ecosystem through Sharia-compliant financial and business advisory support. We work to ensure that our financing solutions encompass the broad spectrum of the requirements of the agriculture value chain. As a renowned full-fledged Islamic bank operating on a value-based banking approach, Agrobank has been on a continuous journey of transformation with the objective of making a positive impact on the life of those we touch. We do mirrors the value-based intermediation or VBI concept advocated by Bank Negara Malaysia. The VBI articulates strategies to deliver the intended outcomes of Sharia through practices, conduct, and offerings that generate positive and sustainable impact to the economy, community, and environment. Ladies and gentlemen, what we have today is translated through the transformation agenda, which include the conversion exercise from conventional to full-fledged Islamic bank. With the completion of our conversion into a full-fledged Islamic bank in 2015, Agrobank is now poised to play a greater role in supporting Malaysia's Islamic banking agenda as we continue to innovate to drive growth and enhance our offerings to the agricultural sector, particularly to SMEs, to ensure that government's development agenda and its policy of financial inclusion are implemented. Today, Agrobank stands tall as an Islamic bank with a direct involvement in the real economy, something that has been emphasized by the proponents of Islamic banking right from the beginning and what remains a challenge in Islamic banking and finance. The conversion exercise was not without its challenges and pains. The transformation was implemented across all areas of the organization, and this required the support of every individual in the company, from the chairman, board members, management, and staff. Even though the journey to be a full-fledged Islamic bank was very challenging, we take pride that our efforts and hard work contribute towards strengthening the Islamic economy. Indeed, it was a difficult process, but one we need to go through. No shortcuts were taken. Strategic delivery plans and outcomes were monitored. Project management with a crystal clear focus on outcomes is without a doubt integral for a successful project. We were fortunate to have had the full support of our board and commitment of the staff, which made the journey less daunting than otherwise it might have been. Alhamdulillah, in 2015, Agrobank took home the upcoming Islamic Bank 2015 accolade by Global Islamic Finance Awards, or GIFA, for upholding Sharia-compliant banking and elevating Malaysia in its efforts to be an established global Islamic financial hub. Ladies and gentlemen, as the banking landscape and customer demands rapidly evolve, we are aware that we need to transform ourselves to take advantage of emerging technologies for future growth. We expect that demand for talents with new competency will increase in the future, and so we look to work with experts to learn ways to be multidisciplinary, collaborative, and agile to respond to the fast-changing environments ahead of us. Through our Agrobank Center of Excellence, we work very closely with institutions of higher learning and business consultancies in Malaysia to collaborate in structuring customized training programs and advisory services for internal and external people. The human capital development is executed through two main platforms, which are training and business advisory services. Under the training arm, modules are created and curated on topics such as business excellence in agriculture activities, financial management, digital marketing, and strategic management in business. We organize our programs for the year based on assessment and needs basis. For the business advisory services, face-to-face as well as webinar sessions are conducted through seminars, conventions, and customized business advisory covering various areas of Islamic finance, wakaf development, halal digitization for development skills, and scale up on their knowledge towards business excellence. We are confident that the Islamic finance industry will continue to grow rapidly even with the current pandemic. The bank is mindful that a comprehensive and robust Sharia governance framework is essential to ensure that the banking business meets all its obligations in relation to upholding Sharia tenets, principles, and conditions in all aspects of its business operations. Notwithstanding, we have received lots of requests from many organizations around the globe to document our practical experience in the conversion exercise. In view of that, a special module entitled Conversion to Full-Fledged Islamic Bank has been successfully developed, explaining in details the transformation journey, conversion process, key challenges, and strategic approach in addressing the challenges. The module covers 5 important areas, which are governance and capital requirements, Sharia issues and resolutions, accounting system, legal requirements, and human capital development for industry's reference. Ladies and gentlemen, today marks a new milestone for Agrobank with the completion of FFIB modules, sharing the practical experience of the conversion exercise, and we hope this module can benefit the Ummah in developing Islamic finance and driving the real economic development. Last but not least, I would like to thank the FFIB team for endless efforts to make this happen. With Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I officially launched the full-fledged Islamic Bank modules for the benefits of industry and development of real economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Puan Khadija Iskandar, for launching the full-fledged Islamic Bank module, a real case study. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the second session of today's event, a forum on the topic of repositioning Islamic banks post-COVID-19. To continue, I will hand over the session to our moderator, Associate Professor Dr. Azman Muhammad Noor from International Islamic University Malaysia, IIUM. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Associate Professor Dr. Azman Muhammad Noor.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. MashaAllah, tabarakallah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-'aliyyil 'azim. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer, Agrobank of Malaysia, for giving me this opportunity and giving a trust in me to be the moderator for today's webinar. It is actually a series of seminars, forum discussions, panel discussions, and forum organized by Agrobank Center of Excellence. I also would like to congratulate Agrobanks, the management, and also all their staff for their hard work to convert, to have a full-fledged conversion to be full-fledged Islamic banks. This happens after several other developing banks like Bank of Development like SME and also Bank Rakyat. They also have converted, become full-fledged Islamic banks. And actually our colleagues, our brothers and sisters from the other part of the Islamic world, they are also interested, because being a lecturer at the International Islamic University of Malaysia and at the Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance, we have students from around the globe, and many of them are interested, especially how to convert. This is among the main issue, and I hope that the model and the experience of Agrobank will be useful and will be helpful for our Muslim brothers and sisters around the globe to also introduce Islamic banking and finance. The topic that we're going to discuss in our webinar today is about repositioning Islamic banks post-COVID-19, and we have with us our distinguished speakers yang berbahagia, Datuk Dr. Mohamed Daud bin Bakar, Dr. our Sheikh, are you there now?
Yes, I'm here, ready to go.
I'm very happy to hear your voice because I can't see you. I'm here physically at the Agrobank studio, not from my home. I wish that I can meet with you face to face, but alhamdulillah, we can reach virtually.
Yeah.
Alim al-Ghaib wa Shahada, and even though we can't see you, but we can reach you, and we are happy to have you with us today. And it is such a great privilege and honor to have you with us to share with us your perspective and your thoughts on the issue that we're going to discuss. And we also have Associate Professor Dr. Fairooz. Are you with us, Dr. Fairooz?
Azman, Daud.
Okay, ahlan wa sahlan, Dr. Fairooz. And another speaker is Encik Taufik. Encik Mohamad Taufik bin Mohamed Zakaria, the Chief Strategy Officer of Agrobank. How are you, Encik Taufik?
Alhamdulillah, good. I'm in.
So I'd like to welcome all of our distinguished speakers for our forum today. We are so glad, and it is such an honor and privilege to have all of you with us today to discuss this very interesting topic. The topic is about repositioning Islamic banks post-COVID. But I don't know how far it is, because we are still struggling with the number of the infected cases around the globe. I think over 50 million, and also in Malaysia over 40,000. But we should think positively. We should think positively, and we should never give up. Inshallah, in the Holy Quran, Allah says, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. With the hardship, there will be ease and relief. And Allah reiterates ta'kid. With the hardship, there will be relief, inshallah. So we should think positively, and we know that the whole world is suffering, and the different sectors of economy around the globe is also suffering. Regardless of the sectors, whether it is the industrial product and services, consumer product and services, technology, property, aviation, transportation, logistics, most of the sectors of economy are suffering, and we are witnessing it. And some would foresee that we will face more trouble. But definitely we, as Muslims, we always have a positive thinking that, inshallah, in the near future, we can get relief, inshallah, from this pandemic. I go straight to the first question. Before that, in brief, the format of our forum today, there will be three rounds. Two rounds for each speaker, and the last one will be Q&A from the audience. So for each round, I give around 8 to 10 minutes for each speaker to share their thought on the topics. So I have a question number one, which I would like to address to Yang Berbahagia, Datuk Dr. Daud. Islamic banks are exposed to higher risk clientele, such as small and medium-sized enterprise, microfinance, and retail financing, particularly in Asia, compared to conventional financial institutions. And based on COVID-19 economic impact assessment by Oxford Economic Group, for the rest of the year, the economic output of key Islamic finance jurisdiction is expected to remain subdued. The question is, given these unpromising scenarios of the SME performance, what would be the most reassuring strategy for Islamic banking and finance industry to stay relevant afloat in the local and international economic and financial landscape?
Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa bihi nasta'in. Amma ba'du. Thank you, respected moderator, my colleague, Associate Professor Dr. Azman Mohamed Noor, esteemed panelists, distinguished audience. Before that, the senior management of Agrobank, Puan Khadijah, and the other ESCO members and senior management of the bank. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, it is a great pleasure to be taking part on this session, timely session, to jointly congratulate the Agrobank for their successful conversion and for today's launching of their module of full-fledged Islamic banking conversion. And I was enjoying the speech by the CEO just now, Puan Khadijah, as she has elaborated in her 10-minute speech or so, many important and vertical, important principle and vertical of a future bank. She spoke about empowerment, multidisciplinary, agility, transformation, acceleration, rural areas, transparency, conversion, and so on and so forth, and fintech, smart technology as well. So to answer your question just now, I think the answers have been given by the speech just now. If we can pick up some of the topic of her speech, we can easily transform them into an actionable plan. Of course, the SMEs will continue to prosper. There are two types of sectors during the COVID. The most hit are not the SMEs. The most hit are basically the big companies because they need to produce more and need to sell more to overseas market. But the SMEs, they are very much local market, so they can still survive, though they are still affected. I'm not saying they are not, they are still affected, but the recovery for SMEs would be a bit quicker, a bit faster compared to the other big conglomerate. So in the position of the banks and the Agrobank and some other similar SME banks in Malaysia, I think the focus would be very much to focus on the sectors of SME and to focus on the quality of the SME based on the data. I mean, the time is over to use our banking knowledge that we have accumulated thus far, talking to the people, understanding their issues, which can be done in the past, would take longer time. But nowadays, with the crisis on the ground and the limited resources, we have the scarcity of fund, scarcity of the projects. The time has come, basically, from my humble opinion, for the bank to employ the big data analytics and the AI to do more, not only to do more, but also to be focused on selecting the bankable SMEs and also to transform the unbankable SMEs to become bankable. This is the job of bank like Agro and the other banks in Malaysia, funded by the government, to really not only to give money to the people, but also to make unbankable SMEs bankable, because our job is to grow them in one way or another. I have my own experience, my own setup of a big data and fintech in Malaysia. We managed to onboard our system, our algorithm to one of the banks in Malaysia to be able to make many people in the past unbankable now become bankable, because the robot can help them to write a proper business plan, to put a better risk mitigation plan, and to transform them. We talked about transformation just now. It's not about the bank transformation, the banker's transformation, but also our potential or existing client. They need to be transformed. Sometimes they have a good idea, good product line, but they don't know how to write business proposal in terms of cash flow management, in terms of marketing strategy, so that the data that we have, smart data that we have, can help them to make them bankable. For the bank or the bankers, we help them to analyze the cases, 1,000 of them, 2,000 of them, instead of 1 month as used to be, to becoming 2 or 3 days in a month to go through all the 1,000 application, because the system is not human, they are not tired, they are not biased, and they don't have any fatigue. Human, we have our own fatigue, and when we become fatigued, we might not take decision, or we defer our decision. That was some problem in the past. During the crisis, we need to be a bit selective and a bit focused, and there's no other way, and the time has come perfectly well to really move on or onboard our smart technology, either our own system, or perhaps the best way is to to have the partnership with the smart technology partners, because they have all the capabilities, and the cost, from the cost perspective, is not that much compared to the IT core solution, where you have to pay million and million, 100 million sometimes to get the core banking solution. But the fintech world, you pay per use, and we have seen that in the case of the Ant Group, Jack Ma and Alibaba Group. They are coming up for the IPO, for the biggest IPO after Aramco in the history of IPO of the world. So what they do basically to help the small SMEs throughout China, 1 billion client, using their system to be able to navigate the risk, the scarcity, the cost, not to mention the COVID-19. So by leveraging on the technology to make everyone happy, and they share the revenue at the end of the day, no upfront cost. And this is something, if you wanted to revive the SME, this is the way forward. I like the idea of upon CEO just now about the agriculture produce. During the COVID-19 and post-COVID-19, two sectors are very important, evergreen. It's the agriculture produce as well as health sector. Perhaps Agrobank would be in the better position to really use our unutilized land. So many pieces of land are unutilized. We need to be a bit creative to make sure that we can put not only the money, but also the expertise, the design thinking, to be able to produce more of the metric ton for any hectare in Malaysia, which are ready to be cultivated and irrigated. And this is the way forward. We are under supply of food. We are over importing of our food items. So perhaps from that perspective, the technology and the focus more on the health, on the agriculture, not only for Malaysian market, for beyond. People are looking for food everywhere in the world now, and perhaps we should be able to come back to our forte of good weather, good land, good water, good workers to produce more by putting the classical capital, the land and the weather, and the new equity, which is the technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ybhg Datuk, for your very interesting sharing. And I think I can summarize from what you said just now, that the opportunities are always there. especially when it comes to smart technology. And I think on top of the two sectors which you mentioned just now, healthcare and also food industry, the technology industry, I mean, recently, were doing very well. This is said by Mutanabbi, wa masaibu qaum inda qaum fawaidu. So the catastrophe for a certain group of people could be an opportunity and a privilege for the other group of people. So there are sectors which sometimes we abandoned before, like agricultural sectors. I think this is also a good opportunity for us to grow the agriculture industry. I think Agrobank has the expertise in this field. Thank you very much, yang berbahagia Datuk. I'll come back to you inshallah in the second round. Now I'd like to move on to the second speaker, yang berbahagia Associate Professor Dr. Fairooz, who is also the chairman of Syariah Committee member of Agrobank. Dr. Fairooz, Islamic finance social instruments. Nowadays, people are talking about social financing, and I think Bank Islam also now promotes lots about the social financing. So Islamic finance social instrument could help countries navigate economic turbulence wrought by the COVID-19 pandemic in 4 Islamic finance countries. In fact, according to rating agency Standard & Poor's, Islamic finance social instrument could help countries handle the economic turmoil created by COVID-19 pandemic in 4 Islamic finance. The question is, moving on to the post-COVID-19 period, how does the mechanism of Islamic banking and social instrument for finance can rebuild the nation, thus upholding the maqasid of Sharia in preserving the religion, life, mind, lineage, and also wealth? Prof.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Amma ba'd. Thank you, Dr. Azman, the moderator, the respected covering CEO, Puan Kharija, distinguished speaker, Datuk Daud, and the respected Chief of Strategy Officers, Taufik. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First and foremost, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me to be a panel in these sessions. It is in fact an honor for me to be with all of you today, particularly having a distinguished speaker, Datuk Daud, with us today. Okay, it is actually an honor for me. So even Dr. Azman himself is also one of the leading scholars in Islamic finance. So I do hope that the barakah will flow from both of them to me, inshallah, and to all of us today in this session. Okay, I think in response to the questions, I would like to share some inputs or thoughts, which I think very preliminary and premature, because some of them may need to be deliberated further in any forum or round table, okay, to ensure viability in terms of market practices. And I think I do agree with the points highlighted by Datuk Daud, that one of the main things to be implemented at present, while confronting the COVID-19 pandemic, is to transform unbankable people to bankable people. This is also a great challenge that the Agrobank need to take up. And I think the questions raised just now is more or less about the maqasid. And I won't go further into the maqasid, because in my opinions, the most significant maqasid that need to be given emphasis in this regard is basically preservation of life, protection of life. وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا, Surah Ma'idah, verse number 32. So if we save the life of the people, it's equivalent to as we save the life of all people. So the maqasid in this regard that I would like to emphasize is on the protections of life. And the other thing is that it is undeniable that COVID-19 has given rise to multifold impact on the economy, lifestyle, unemployment, and so on and so forth. Therefore, there is a dire need, okay, for Islamic banks to actually work out on the most viable and appropriate mechanisms or social finance, okay, to be extended to those impacted by the COVID-19. I think despite the whole negative effects that we are all aware of it, I think there are two things, okay, that need to be focused in this regard, whether we like it or not, in terms of the pandemic itself. The first one is industry's social role, and second is adoption of financial technology. These are the transformations that all Islamic banks will have to encounter with in the near future, particularly at present onwards, maybe in the next 5 years. So what is happening now in terms of enforcement of MCO and also the restrictions on so many companies to actually stabilize the cash flow. So this will definitely give rise to the two things that I've mentioned earlier on. The industry's social role that we need to play, and we need to have our own strategy in this regard. And also the other thing is the adoption or the usage of financial technology, or the so-called fintech, as mentioned correctly by Daud earlier on. And one more thing, I try to cover what I think is very important. I would like to set a very clear framework in this case. I would like to just rely on one Quranic verse. Allah says in the Quran, "Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan." Allah orders us to observe fairness and ihsan, or benevolence. Two things, al-adlu wal ihsan. How do we adopt that in terms of our industry now while combating the pandemics, COVID-19 pandemics? So I think the first is al-adlu. Al-adlu means that, as mentioned by Imam Ghazali, so it is equivalent to majra ra'sil mal. It is just equivalent to the capital. While the ihsan is more than that, because it is resemble with the profit that we need to gain. So ihsan is that we do more. Now, in the context of Islamic banks, in particular in Malaysia, as well as Agrobanks, the most challenging thing is that what more can we do? What more can we do in relation to the maqasid of preservations of life? So I think, in my opinions, there are few mechanisms that we can suggest, which of course need further deliberations. And the first one is, of course, adoptions of ihsan itself. Adoption of ihsan itself. So Imam Ghazali says that ihsan is tafaddulun minhu, or it is something that we do more than what we are required to do. So there are financial obligations that we need to meet, and there are something that is beyond that we can do. Says, for example, we are giving or extending financing to the customer for the tenure of 20 years. So what is something that we can do more on top of that? So according to fairness, we have to collect the amounts within the period of 20 years. We cannot, claim earlier than that. So that's this. But in order to adopt ihsan, we have to do more than that. So that is the philosophy of doing more than that. So then what we have been doing so far in order to actually offer some kinds of financial assistance to those impacted by the COVID-19. I move on, and the second one is, of course, the adoptions of the financial technology, as mentioned correctly by the first speaker. And these one are the two things. These are the two things that all Islamic banks have to give emphasis on them. And now I would like to straight away move to the mechanism or social instruments that are potential to be discovered and, of course, extended for the purpose of resolving the issue of COVID pandemics, okay, particularly post COVID-19 pandemics. I think the first one I've mentioned, the adoptions of ihsan, wherever possible in all of the products and services that we offer, we can check whether we can adopt the concept of ihsan wherever possible. Okay, that doesn't mean that we have to actually sacrifice our bottom line. No. Some people, they may say that I'm too classical or traditional, but in fact, we always take into consideration the practicality and the reality of the Islamic banks themselves. So, as long as it is within their capability, then they can do so for more rewards and for the betterment of the people in order to support the community empowerment. And the second social instrument, I think that has been mentioned earlier, the zakat. So how do we operate zakat? Okay, in the case of Islamic banks, we can explore further some other things relating to zakat. Now, in my opinion, zakat is more suitable for short-term kinds of social instruments that can help assist the banks to actually offer assistance to those unbankable, underserved, and so on and so forth. So now, since zakat is, in my opinion, should be based on immediate effect, and because the people are more in need of it, then we need to think about what is the best approach for that matter. So I think, in my opinion, one of the things that we may explore, I'm not saying that this is final, that we may want to explore is, the ta'jilu zakat or acceleration of zakat payment before it is due. Since, for example, the first speaker has mentioned earlier on that there is a shortage or issue of funding to support the unbankable people. We need funding as well. So that one has to be taken into consideration. So zakat will be one of the most important potential source of fund as well. So in this case, I think the concepts of ta'jilul zakat can be further explored in terms of how can it be operationalized at banks level, so that we can, support the need that is really pressing now. So that is from maqasid perspective or awlawiyat. Says, for example, sometimes people would like to pay zakat before its due time, and people pay it earlier during the Ramadan because they want to get more reward. So some fatwa were saying that we can even, pay zakat earlier than the due times, okay, because the need for zakat at this point of time is more pressing. But how to operationalize it, then there is another thing that needs to be discussed in the specific forums. And the other thing pertaining to zakat is that the Islamic banks who pay zakat cannot be seen as just a payer of zakat, in my opinion, and cannot be seen as just a banking institution that operate banking business. They must also be seen as an entity that also provides some kinds of trainings, particularly in relations to financial management and also financial literacy, risk management, and all the related fees. Because for example, at Agrobanks, okay, what we have been doing is that we try to focus more on the entrepreneurship programs under the Asnaf or Fi Sabilillah, because for us that is seem to be more flexible, okay, whereby we can involve so many Asnaf, and even not an individual Asnaf, but under the umbrella of Fi Sabilillah, it will give us more rooms to be more effective and efficient in utilizing the zakat money. For us at Agrobank, for example, we have entrepreneurship program involving, burger franchise programs. So whereby in this case, what we have been doing is that the bank also allocates zakat fund, okay, to hire external training company to provide training for these people or for those involved in the entrepreneurship programs in order for them to actually succeed in their business. And this, we have seen that this is a success. Okay, we are going to do more in this regard. So I think instead of that, the other thing pertaining to zakat is, of course, the use of technology. Okay, as has been practiced by some zakat authority, as far as I know. Even in Perak, for example, they already started the use of e-wallet and other modern technological instruments to actually expedite the process, particularly in terms of collection as well as distribution. But as far as the Islamic banks are concerned, the distribution channel, okay, should be, implemented by using the modern technological instruments or facilities. So this is something that we need to really focus on. That's why earlier on I've covered two things. The first is social instrument and social roles of Islamic banks, and second one is the adoptions of technological advancements. And in addition to that, I think the other thing that we can take as a potential social instrument for Islamic banks to implement is, of course, the wakaf. But similarly, in this case, when we implement wakaf, we need to also emphasize on the real maqasid that is of higher priority, okay, which is protection of life. I believe that, and I think everybody is aware of the fact that some Islamic banks have already engaged in the in the wakaf initiative that they have done. But the beneficiaries that they want to focus are not actually relating to the maqasid that I have stressed upon it earlier on, which is on the protection of life. As for now, well, because of the problem that people are facing in terms of unemployment, unstable cash flow, and also the loss of income. So this to me, I consider as wasa'il mechanisms, and this need to be supported as well. And the other things is sadaqah, and also tented income can also be explored, okay, as another source of income. But I do not know how to operationalize them in terms of mobilizing the fund itself. And I think I have covered the most important things that I would like to say as social instruments. That's all from me for the first round. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Fairooz, for your insightful thoughts. Actually, I think Islamic banks have shown their commitments, especially when it comes to the exercise of moratorium of the payments, where before people used to say that banks are so greedy, banks always want to maximize the profits. But during this pandemic, we all know that the bank have to forgo some of the profits. Because of the payment holidays, some of the banks suffer a loss quite a lot, depend on the size. Okay, and Dr. Fairooz also mentioned a very interesting point about al-adl wal-ihsan, and also about the strategy, how. And I think the strategy is very, very crucial, very important, because we don't know how long this pandemic will be around. And at the beginning, for example, we spent zakat money, for example, in the beginning of the MCO, even though not only the zakat centers, but also banks spend their zakat, and also other institutions, and also individuals, they spend their zakat. And then now there are more cries for help, and there are more. So we should have our strategy how to face, okay, the trouble. Dr. Fairooz said it's not only by giving them zakat, cash zakat, but also we have to prepare them a proper training, how to survive. So some of them recall it, this is we have to go to basic, how to survive, regardless of the certificates, regardless of the working experience. During this pandemic, we have to train ourselves how to survive. So people are willing to do whatever job, whatever opportunity, if there is any opportunity for their survival. So inshallah, I think we can discuss later about those strategies, and also the Islamic financial institutions also should think wisely on those strategies. I move on to the third speaker, Encik Mohamed Taufik. Last year, Agrobank launched new vision, advancing agriculture beyond banking. I think the vision is pretty much in line with value-based intermediation framework advocated by BNM, which focus on triple bottom line of people, profit, and planet. I would see the vision coming at the right time, given the impact of current pandemic to SMEs, particularly micro customer, where expected 80% of 900,000 SMEs affected. Perhaps you can share with the viewers or with the audience the bank's approach in developing the agriculture community and driving the economic growth and vision from the bank's new vision. Prof.
Right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good afternoon. Thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Azman, Mohamed Noor, the moderator for today's forum on repositioning of Islamic banks post-COVID, and of course the renowned speakers. I'm happy and glad to be seated virtually next to Datuk Dr. Mohamed Daud, as well as our very own chairman of Agrobank's Sharia Committee, Professor Dr. Mohamed Fairooz. And yes, you are right. Last year we launched the new vision of Agrobank, which is about advancing agriculture beyond banking. And that is actually one of the key steps that we have taken following the conversion of Agrobank as a full-fledged Islamic bank way back in 2015 July. So in July 2015, after we have successfully converted to become a full-fledged Islamic, we had a rethink about our future strategies. We rethink about the way how we demonstrate greater Islamic finance values, and the review of the vision statement of the bank basically is towards making sure that we have a bigger statement in terms of what we plan to achieve. We don't want to be just a leader in Islamic finance specifically for agriculture. We don't want to be just the champion for agriculture finance market share, but what we wanted to do is actually to look at how Islamic finance can be used in its application for agriculture finance. And for agriculture finance, we don't just look at debt creation. We wanted to see how Islamic finance can be used as a tool beyond that relationship, beyond the conventional banking, and that's basically underpins the new vision that the bank has. So advancing agriculture beyond banking is entirely about Islamic finance, is our statement how we actually demonstrate Islamic finance to the public and in its application for agriculture sector. In the transformation framework of the new vision, we basically have altogether 9 guiding principles, and one of the 9 guiding principles of the bank's transformation agenda is actually about innovative Islamic finance in real economy, specifically for agriculture sector. And what does this really mean is, it is about effective application. So I mean effective application of financial instruments that expands the current bank's business model beyond the normal credit intermediation. So we wanted to see how the bank can actually use other ways of other financial models such as investment intermediation, protection services and coverage, the e-marketplace or trading platform, agriculture asset management services for greater linkages between finance, Islamic finance and the real economic activities, primarily for agriculture sector. And when we look at our financing solution, we wanted to make sure that it encompasses a broad spectrum of the agriculture value chain. That means from upstream activities, midstream activities which are manufacturing and processing, as well as the downstream activities in the agriculture sector. So by doing this, we will be able to integrate value chain financing for various industries in agriculture sector, and we will be also able to pull in more participation from the agriculture community. So who are these agriculture communities that we're talking about? So agriculture communities that we are looking at are not just corporate players, are not just commercial players. We are looking at nano players, we are looking at micro players, and we are also even looking at small players within the definition of SME. So by doing this, we will be able to look at the financing needs of startup companies with good business models. Sometimes they don't have capital, but they have good ideas. We even have at the moment financial solutions for OKU. We are the only financial institution in the country that is offering OKU financing. And specifically for women, we have financing program for women that meets the specific needs of financial solution for the women segments. And these are all strategies that we have developed and put in place to basically able to attract more community players, agriculture community players, to basically bank with Agrobank and use agriculture as a tool to basically create wealth. And that basically is the outcome and the best, I must say, the best outcome of Islamic finance. We are not just about creating debt, we are about creating wealth. And we actively develop contract farmers with guidance from anchor companies, and we would like to see an upward migration of from as I mentioned tadi, from nano players, micro players, small commercial and corporate players. We would like to see them scale up their business and able to upward migrate their business from just a nano small business operation to become a small business operation, medium-sized business operation, and ultimately we would like to see them as the future anchor for different industries that are high value and high potential for the country's economic development. We also actively look at a collaboration with conglomerates, private conglomerates such as Petronas, Felda, where these entities are also interested to work with Agrobank towards development of the agriculture community, specifically for the B40s. This is about giving them opportunities to access cheaper cost of financing, and also we run a lot of empowerment program for B40 community, which are also spearheaded by our Center of Excellence. So in Agrobank, we don't just look at our contribution by just giving financing. So we provide entrepreneurship development program from someone who doesn't know how to develop a business plan. We help them to provide the templates, we help them to construct a business plan, documents necessary for them to make an application for financing, to the extent of doing client matching. And we also do a lot of industry references, sharing of knowledge for those who are interested to basically expand their business operation beyond just doing upstream activities. We also match them with other midstream and processing and manufacturing players, so to make sure that whatever that they supply, there will always be a market for them. We have implemented in the past quite a number of wonderful programs for community development. One of them that I can also share here is Agrobank, which is a collaboration with the state government, specifically for agriculture sector. We had one program with IIUM. We had also one program with the East Corridor, a period of 6 months program in development of Asnaf community with technical and soft skill trainings for selected industries such as frozen meat, stainless bee, bakery. These are all agriculture industries based on the location of the demographic location. So one of the successful programs that we had implemented was in Bunut Rendang, Kuantan, and the next one that we will be holding is actually for Tok Bali, Kelantan. And Allah once said in its ayat 36 of Surah An-Nisa, serve Allah and ascribe no partner to Him. Do good to your parents, do to your near of kin, and to orphans and to the needy. Right? So I repeat, to the needy and to the neighbor who is of kin, and to the neighbor of who is a stranger, and to the companion by your side. So I think there's a lot of emphasis given on those who are needy, and in the agriculture sector there are considerations, there are huge opportunities for us to actually lift up the social well-being of B40s in the agriculture community, and we would like to see how Agrobank can actually play a prominent role towards uplifting the social well-being of the B40 for agriculture community. Another program that I can also share is Hijrah Asnaf, which is also a structured development program in collaboration with selected anchor companies. And this program is basically aiming at removing Asnaf from recipients to zakat contributors. So we're not just looking at giving them zakat money, but we wanted to see how they can be developed by giving zakat as a tool for them to develop their business. And by doing that, they will be able to create wealth and ultimately become a zakat payer instead of just a receiving end. And we also actively conduct business clinics for affected micro customers, focusing on digital marketing and financial management. And we also conducted close monitoring on those who we find will require a closer handholding to make sure that their performance are being tracked, and we will be able to also provide business advisory from time to time to ensure that their failure rate is low. And Alhamdulillah, with proper coaching, so far, lots of the affected customers as a result of our COVID-19 in the country, managed to improve their business performance and recorded sale even better than before PKP. This is the new norm, the new ways of how we can actually help our entrepreneurs. Instead of they go to the market physically, we now teach them how they can use e-marketplace for the purpose of accessing their customers. So that's how the bank define Islamic finance solution in real economy, and this is how we demonstrate our vision statement. Of course, there are a lot more that we can do towards realizing our vision. We have huge plan that we have drawn up for the next 5 years in our new strategic business plan, and you will be able to see how Agrobank actually pushes the way how banks can actually use Islamic finance for the purpose of community development. And this is how we discharge our mandate as development financial institution in the country. Thank you very much, Moderator, Tuan Moderator, Professor Dr. Azman. I hope that I've addressed your question.
Thank you very, very much, Encik Mohamad Taufik. So it's really advancing agriculture beyond banking. So it's not only about agriculture, but also about entrepreneurship. And it's about training and about to give a proper skill and education from nano trader to become an anchor in the industry, in the area which the person is has the specialty. So this is quite interesting. And also you also give facility or financing to the EOTU, disabled people. So this is also quite interesting, and we hope that the bank will keep on with this strategy and with this good effort in order to have, as you said, especially those who receive zakat to become the zakat giver. So yeah, inshallah one day they become successful in their entrepreneurship, in whatever they endeavor, their business, and then they can become zakat giver, inshallah. I now move on to the second round. I go back to Ybhg Datuk. Datuk, I have a question for you. It's about Wakaf. The institution of Wakaf is slowly but steadily being pushed into the mainstream through reforms and developing consensus on innovations such as corporate Wakaf and cash Wakaf. There are relevant instances of the application for provision of affordable healthcare. In the case of the former, an equity stake in a for-profit company or portfolio of companies is placed as Wakaf, and the returns flowing in the form of dividends are used for funding establishments that provide various social goods. And in fact, last week, Sharia Advisory Council Securities Commission of SC had announced the new issuance of framework for sukuk issuance with Wakaf features. Yang berbagai Datuk, how do you see the potential of corporate Wakaf in driving the economy beyond the traditional way of Wakaf contribution? Does rebuild the economy affected by this pandemic?
Thank you, Dr. Azman. Thank you for putting that question to me. A very timely issue being discussed in the Islamic Finance Fraternity, as well as in the fraternity of SRI, the sustainable environment, the sustainability agenda of the country. It was mentioned in the budget as well, 2021, that the government is planning to set up a plan they call it master plan for Wakaf for the country. That sounds very interesting, exciting, insightful, and we hope to see more of Wakaf creation, Wakaf unlocking, and Wakaf investment in the future. Yeah, people talk about cash Wakaf and corporate Wakaf for the last, 2 decades by now, last 20 years. I think if I could be a bit open, a bit blunt, and a bit honest in my assessment, I think in order to make Wakaf really a living and kicking institution or product, we shouldn't be limiting to any form of wakaf. We should be keen, able, and willing to really open up the areas of wakaf, from corporate cash to services to even data, the plan data for the student, across sectors of the need of the society. Because wakaf is very charitable in nature. Wakaf is not really a worship or ritual like prayers and fasting and hajj, where we are supposed to determine because we are worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is not changeable. But when we come to wakaf, we are taking into account the needs of the society. And for that matter, I think I would suggest that in many other conference seminar, we make wakaf a very open-ended discussion. Otherwise, wakaf will be trapped, will be contained in the old capsule, if you like. And we cannot be moving. Even cash wakaf, we are struggling. Corporate wakaf, we are struggling. Though there's a framework by Assc, which is good move, that to allow the wakafer or the founder to put aside the dividend of the investment to support the wakaf projects, as if we are making wakaf out of the fruit without the tree. Some people, they wanted to make wakaf the tree and the fruit, the cow and the milk, but in this particular case, it's a gradual basis. People don't want to wakaf their sukuk, their unit trust, and whatever product they have in the financial world. They wanted to put aside the dividend arising from the financial product. That's fine, and this is something that we have to congratulate everyone in Malaysia that we are taking that decision to encourage more people to do that. But what's next, basically, Dr. Azman? Do we have a special tax incentive for wakaf, for example? So we need to put that motion all the time. If people wanted to create his own wakaf, personal wakaf, we can't. We have to go to the state level. So if that is the case, how could we make the wakaf more friendly but still governed by the state authority? Perhaps the e-wakaf will be very prominent. So people can create the wakaf, can register the wakaf, can be the maintenance, the housekeeper of the property, but title-wise is under the state level. So I don't want to take a longer time. Wakaf is very dynamic products. I'm guided myself by the Quranic verse, Ma alal muhsinin min sabil. There is no limitation, there's no restriction for those muhsinin in terms of putting limitation for them. Al-Quran encourages all type of charitable work. We cannot be limiting the way we do charitable work. The scholars cannot be so strict. The scholar cannot be so literalist. The scholar cannot be so contained by the legacy of the past. This is the need of the day, and we have to create the wakaf, which is the most effective wakaf of the day. Sayyidina Azman bin Affan, radiyallahu anhu, has wakafized or has created the wakaf on something which is the most needed item during that time, which is the well, the bi'ru ruma, the well of the ruma, which is the supply of water, drinking water for the community, Muslim and non-Muslim alike. So this is the time. What is needed now for the farmers, for the fishermen, they need the machine or the boat and the whatever. So can we go to that detail? So otherwise, the wakaf will be very much academic, and as much as we wanted to progress, but we are trapped in our own, thinking process, very much locked down in the past. Whereas if our scholars in the past were to live in our modern time, they would be innovative enough to create many solutions to solve the issue of poverty, the hardship, lack of resources, lack of services, and everything. So why can't we take the challenge now? Thank you for asking this question to really unlock the potential of wakaf once and for all. And we need to work together with the state authorities, religious authorities in the state, with the federal government, with the taxation department, the inland revenue, and the bank, of course, financial institution, to really make the wakaf much more, much more iconic, rather than very much on the fringe of the mainstream of financial market. Thank you very much.
Jazakallah khairan kathiran, Ybhg Datuk. I think I saw you in the morning for the opening remark for our conference about tafsir and ta'wil Quran and Hadith. A very interesting topic, very, very important, because as you said, the interpretation of Quran and Hadith is always fresh and always new things which is always suitable to be discussed and to be applied at all time and at all occasions. So very interesting point you mentioned about the tax incentive, for example. Recently we have in the budget presentation in the parliament session by the Minister of Finance, there is something about the unit trust where there can be tax incentive, but we hope that we want to see that not only through unit trust, but can also through cash wakaf and other instruments which we can get, for example, tax incentive. And another thing is about the e-wakaf you said just now, and also another thing about, I think maybe we can add on about the temporary wakaf. Scholars in the Middle East, for example, they allow, like in the UAE, I was told that they allow for 10 years. I think Ybhg Datuk knows better about this. For the wakaf muakkad, for temporary period of time, and where the owner can take it back or the family member can take it back after a certain period of time. So this is also among the way or among the innovation where you can attract people to do wakaf more, because they have many choices. They can make it ada wajib ta'bid forever, or they can, for example, have a temporary wakaf. This will attract people rather than putting their money at a bank for the FD. For example, they can put the money for the wakaf purpose for a certain period of time, and this can be the money, the dividend can be utilized for the benefit of others, those who are in need of help. Thank you very much, Ybhg Datuk. I hope that Ybhg Datuk can stay with us, because at the third round there will be questions from the audience, inshallah. We move on to Dr. Fairooz. Today, Agrobank launched full-fledged Islamic bank modules with aspirations to play a greater role in Islamic finance development and driving the economy. How do you see the potential of Islamic finance in future?
Which I think very important questions that we need to be forward-looking in answering the questions. And before I move on, I would like to say that I'm totally agreeable with what has been mentioned just now on the cash wakaf, and that we need to be having some kinds of friendly types of wakaf implementation, so that it can be more open. So that's a good things and good developments that we need to spur in the industry of Islamic finance. But coming back to the questions, I believe that by Agrobank having launched its own module for conversions, as mentioned by the covering CEO in her speech, I think that will be very meaningful and helpful in terms of Islamic finance developments in the next, for example, in the next 5 years onwards, because there are so many areas or regions in the world that still remain untapped. Okay, for example, if we look at the Islamic assets, okay, all over the world, we can find that, for example, 95% of the world Sharia compliant assets are accounted by 10 countries only by 10 countries. And for example, none of the 10 countries is from East Asia, okay, like Japan, Korea, and China. So these areas are still, in my opinion, in need of more Islamic banks to operate there, to facilitate their, banking activities as well as financial activities. In the light of trade finance, for example, if we look into Japan, okay, who has actually so-called commodity trade with GCC. okay, for so long, then there is no, for example, enough or Islamic banks who facilitates the transaction or the trade by offering or extending Islamic trade finance. So there is a need for Islamic banks to be there. And if we look, for example, Korea, recently, I think Agrobank has been approached by country like Korea, okay, in terms of knowing more about how to establish Islamic banks or perhaps to set up Islamic window, because for example, the emphasis is now on the halal market. So for them to ensure that the halal market is fully Sharia compliant in all of its ecosystem, of which one of which is definitely facilities, Islam financing facilities. There is also a need, okay, to have Islamic banks to facilitate that as well. So in this regard, I think the module, for example, completed or that has been implemented by Agrobank will be very instrumental, okay, as a kind of support for those countries to move on or to develop Islamic finance in their regions, so that there will be enough and sufficient products and services that will cater for the halal market in particular. And the other thing is that I think we need to also look into what actually motivates, okay, people to subscribe to Islamic banking product and services. If we want to be forward-looking in terms of the presence or the need to have Islamic banks in those regions and countries, we can also ponder upon this case by looking at the Muslim populations all over the world, particularly in those regions. For example, if you look at China, for example, China is hosting minority of 23 million Muslims, okay, who are also by religions, would like or would be very keen and interested, okay, to ensure that they themselves, are fully Islamic in terms of funding, financings, and cash management or wealth management that they have to do. Some of them are very wealthy, but in terms of Islamic finance facilities and services that they need to have in order to manage their wealth is still lacking. So I think with a very big populations like China, 23 million Muslims, I think the need for Islamic banks in the near future will be very crucial and significant. Therefore, the last point that I would like to share is that now what we need to do and what we need to prepare at our level is to basically to have all the instruments, Islamic finance instruments, banking instruments, product and services that we think viable and appropriate, as well as crucially and significantly needed by the people in those regions, by of course looking into their economic developments and situation from time to time. We need to get ready with the whole products and instruments. And of course, it will be a value-adding kinds of thing if we can also be prepared with what we have been discussing throughout this session from the initial part until now, is to have these social instruments. I think every country in all regions is looking for these kinds of social instruments. By having Islamic banks, these social instruments are still, relevant to them because they have to have it in order to, extend or to contribute to the community empowerment as well as community developments in those areas. I think these are the points that I would like to share. Thank you, Dr. Azman.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fairooz, for your very insightful points. I move on to the third speaker, Mohamed Taufik. The pandemic has proved beyond doubt the value of digital services that minimize or eliminate direct human contacts. E-commerce companies particularly flourish during the crisis. Moreover, digital money is becoming more important to avoid transmitting the disease through paper money, as an indication of how digital economy is taking over the traditional economy. Looking at the budget to 2021 table in the parliament, around 60 million proposed for allocated for agri-tech development, particularly on value chain development for deployment and acquisition of new technology in line with IR 4.0 to be facilitated by Agrobank. How do you see agriculture for the next 5 years, and what is the bank's approach to maintain relevant in the market while strengthening its position with the right business model? That is my question.
Thank you, Prof, for the question. I think historically in the past, agriculture sector has always been seen as a sector inherently, in terms of its risk, is always a higher risk. Simply because sometimes when you lend to agriculture players who does business in agriculture, it is beyond just the credit risk. It is about the performance risk of the business. So due to the performance of the business, which can be volatile, sometimes due to the changes in prices, sometimes due to slower demand, historically, agriculture sector is always seen as not really the target of many other financial institutions in the country. But lately, I'm quite surprised to see that the number of financial institutions have actually expressed interest to actually work with Agrobank to come out with syndicated programs, and also coming out with some new structures where the other financial institutions can also participate in their lending to agriculture community. So they have the appetite. We have the technical know-how. We know basically how agriculture finance work, and this is where the synergy between Agrobank and other financial institutions actually works well. And moving forward, that basically signifies the face of agriculture sector in the country for the next 5 years. I think the next 5 years going to be wonderful years for agriculture sector. If you look at the COVID experience in the country at the moment, when other economic sectors are experiencing a significant slowdown, agriculture sector, primarily agro-food, remain constant, and that basically signifies the strength of the domestic consumption and also the consumption pattern of our in our country. And due to that, many more financial institutions are looking at agriculture sector as one of their main target sector for growth. And for us, we take this as a healthy development towards contributing to the safety and soundness of the national food security. And as the banking landscape and also customer demands rapidly evolve, we are aware that we need to also be part of this transformation and take the advantage of emerging technologies for future growth. So agriculture sector is not just about labor-oriented industries anymore. Moving forward, there will be a lot more technology players, application of new technologies in agriculture. And one of the agenda that the bank is basically taking on under the new transformation program is actually to catalyze new industries as well as market development by using technology. And when we undertake quality and broader scale non-traditional intermediary role, as I mentioned earlier in the first question, the bank will be able to actually stimulate economic activities that would not otherwise be, take place, such as harnessing growth in new industries by taking equity positions. And also looking at our role as a musyarakah player for niche segments identified to be strategic and economic importance to the economy, and of course for agriculture sector. And if for those that followed the recent budget announcement for 2021, as presented by the Minister of Finance, value chain development will be one of the main agenda that the government will be focusing on. And in Agrobank, focus will be on diversification along the value chain. So we want to see the value chain get expanded. So and to make sure that we will be able to do this, we will have to do a lot more market research. We need to do a lot more knowledge acquisition for new industries and crops. And of course, we cannot do this alone. We have to collaborate with the other agriculture agencies. Secondly, we want to look at how we can create new anchor companies that can actually pioneer application of technology for agriculture sector. So under this initiative, for instance, we are currently working with one of the local universities for high impact business incubator program in agriculture sector. And as you know, aquaculture only contribute about 30% of the local fisheries statistics at the moment. And the purpose of this aquaculture program is actually to increase the local production of freshwater fish and focusing on high demand species while developing young agripreneurs in the aquaculture industry. So there will also be huge application of technology for the purpose of aquaculture fishery for freshwater, and this program mainly targeted towards building group of young entrepreneurs who are capable of being key players in the aquaculture sector for the next 5 years. And why we target the young entrepreneurs? These are basically the segments where we find they are more adaptive to technology adoption, and they are more open towards seeing technology as a tool for them to actually improve their yield. And on top of what I have mentioned, we have also other two areas which are also a priority. One of them is actually technology advancement and modern farming. So we are seriously looking at working with technology players who provide big data and IoT applications, automation and machineries. And most importantly, these players, technology players, they cannot come to Agrobank and meet the agriculture community and sell hardwares. This is not the right way to do it. The strategy that we are adopting is to see how they can actually become technology service provider, pay per use operating model. So when farmers use their systems, farmers use their data, then they will pay. And there must also be recourse to the technology players, because when they use the data, it must help to improve their yield. So when the production yield is not improving, despite using such data and technology, there must also be some burden sharing between the technology players as well as the agriculture community. So they cannot, the technology players who wanted to enter into agriculture sector cannot just see themselves as just a hardware seller. So they must see themselves as a partner, a strategic partner to agriculture player, and they must see themselves as they must have a skin in the game. They must also participate in taking the risk, and whatever the outcome and improvement in yield will definitely be something that can be shared together with the technology players. So this is one of the strategic priority that we are looking at the front. Secondly is in terms of promoting greater interest for sustainable practices. So I think increasingly for palm oil, we have to we heard about the compliance with MyGap and also the international standards when it comes to palm oil, and some of the industries like poultry. Several states, I think most of the states have already taken stance to regulate open poultry farming system, and now most states are actually towards converting to be any poultry players who wanted to do chicken rolling, you will have to do on an closed house system, which are more environmental friendly and more technology driven as compared to the open farming. And by doing this, we will also be able to inculcate and encourage new technology adoption among the agriculture community. All in all, I think it's a full-fledged Islamic bank, and Agrobank with more than 50 years in the industry and in the country. I strongly believe that Agrobank is on a continuous journey of transformation with the objective of making positive impact on the life of those that we touch. And what we do mirrors the VBI concept advocated by FBLive, as already mentioned by the analyst earlier, which also articulates strategies towards delivering the intended outcome of Sharia to practices, conduct, and offerings that generate positive values and also sustainable impact to the economy, community, and environment. And if we have technology in doing this, it's definitely a perfect formula. It's our aspiration to actually see how the agriculture sector progressed from just being a labor-intensive industries to become a very highly capex-driven, technology-driven industries with huge potential. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Encik Mohamad Taufik, for your brilliant sharing. Now we have come to the third round. I try to choose for every speaker one question from the audience, and because of time constraint, I hope that you can allocate only around 3 minutes to give your response to those questions. Question number one to Yang Berbahagia Datuk. It is about the zakat distribution. What would be the priority for zakat utilization used for needy or helping affected SMEs, moving from Asnaf then become the zakat contributor? Cannot hear, tak dengar. We cannot hear, Datuk. Tak dengar, Datuk. But the question is clear to you, huh? Yes. I'm sorry, we have a technical problem here. Hang on a second, Datuk. Let them fix it. Maybe we come back to you, Datuk. We start with Dr. Fairooz. We have a question about Dr. Fairooz, if you are with us, there is a question, 2 questions about the products of Islamic bankings. Why there has been too much debt-based like murabaha instead of musyarakah. I think this is a very common question from the industry. I hope that you can give your response to these questions around 3 minutes. Fadal.
Thank you, Dr. Azman. I think this is a very popular question that has been around in so many forums before this. I think some of us have already known the answer. Firstly, in my opinion, murabaha, even though it is a debt-based contracts, it is still considered a Sharia compliant contracts. Okay, and there is no doubt, okay, on that matter. And on top of that, it is very straightforward kinds of products. And the Sharia has recognized it as a valid financial transactions, okay, to be done even during the lifetime of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That kinds of products is called Ybhg muajjal. Alright, this is acceptable to Sharia and as compared to musyarakah. So this is another issue. Why musyarakah is so very rare, okay, in the case of Islamic finance industry. And of course, technically, there might be some technical issues, for example, in terms of capital charge and so on. So musyarakah will be a bit problematic in that manner. But that doesn't mean that musyarakah has not been in the Islamic finance market at all. In sukuk market, we have sukuk musyarakah. And in Islamic banking product and services, we have musyarakah mutanafisah, diminishing partnerships, okay, as an underlying contract for home financing, for example. And it doesn't mean that musyarakah has been sidelined at all. So it depends on the needs of the market at that point of time. So I believe that murabaha, firstly, is compliance, and it's a very straightforward. I remember one of the treasurer from one of the Islamic banks was saying to me, murabaha is is our friendly contracts. They call it is our friendly contracts. So murabah can be done in different kinds of products in order to facilitate the needs of the markets. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fairooz. I come to another question to Encik Taufik from our audience. It is about the portfolio management. How Agrobank manage portfolio management for balancing asset and liability management during pandemic COVID-19 and after the extension moratorium? 3 minutes.
Thank you for the question. Thank you. It's a very technical question. I'm surprised the whoever that posed that question must be a banker. So basically, we are glad that our portfolio are largely floating rates, and by virtue of having a high floating rates, we are able to have a natural hedge in our balance sheet, where our liabilities are actually repriced quite assets are actually repriced quite on a similar fashion how we reprice our liabilities. And by doing that, during the COVID crisis, as I think the country is aware, that OPR has actually went down, and by doing that, practically banks are not able to charge at the similar rates as how we used to charge before in terms of the profit rate. But due to the natural hedge, we are able to also do the same, reducing our cost of funds by borrowing it lower from depositors. In terms of the impact of moratorium, being a development financial institutions, I think if I remember correctly, Agrobank is one of the first bank in the country that announced we will not charge profits on moratorium during the moratorium period. So the 6 months period, basically the bank takes the hit. I think this year definitely we will only able to produce a lower financial performance in terms of our profitability, but that is basically our duty as a development financial institution. We have buffers internally that have been built, and leveraging on these buffers, we are able to cushion some of the impact of lower profits, basically to provide a relief for our customers. So that's basically how we do it in Agrobank.
Thank you very much, Cik Taufik. We go back to Ybhg, Datuk. Can we reach you, Datuk? Datuk Dr.
Yes,
Daud.
can you hear me now?
Alhamdulillah. Khitamuhu miss. Alhamdulillah. So we go back to you. The question was about the
zakat.
Zakat, how to prioritize between the status. Fadal.
I think we are living in different time zone now, different landscape, lain padang, lain belalang, as the Malay proverb goes. I think we need to focus on new data of zakat beneficiaries. Let's say we have collectively in the whole nation 1 billion ringgit Malaysia to be dispersed as zakat. Perhaps we shouldn't be giving zakat as it is, as cash payment. We should be looking into the more effective way of doing things. For example, instead of giving cash or nakat in terms of wang tunai, we can give through vouchers. So vouchers can be used to stimulate the SME businesses in their own kampong, villages, by buying goods and minyak masak, cooking oil and diapers and sugar and whatnot. This is the minimum. The second stage is to give them some training. For them to receive zakat, they need to be trained 3 hours, 4 hours to change the mindset, to be able to do something, new scaling. In fact, I was saying that even for the budget, in many TV station interview, I was saying to them, it's not proper for Malaysian government just to give cash, take and leave it. No, before we give the money to them, whatever belia and those who are affected, give them the opportunity, the chance to be trained, to be educated, and to be exposed to the new way of doing things, so that they can get the money as well as the new knowledge. The third, we need to focus again based on data. What would be the new what would be this SME, let's say farmers or fishermen? We give them a bit zakat so they can sustain the employment for the next 6 months to 1 year. So we create the impact immediately to the society. In other words, from my perspective, zakat is about the output management. We hope that when we do wakaf, zakat, and sadaqah, one input can give 3 output, in fact 10 output, even 1,000 output. This is the whole businesses of looking into Sharia, where Sharia is always about putting the input to create more output to the society. With that, hopefully it can give some suggestion to the zakat sectors to use every 1 ringgit that we give to generate some value added in the society for the beneficiaries or for the surrounding community, or even to SME and businesses and employment opportunities in the country. Thank you very much.
Jazakumullah khairan kathiran, barakallahu fikum. We have received lots of questions, ladies and gentlemen. Due to time constraint, perhaps we can respond in other forum. Thank you very much again to our distinguished prominent speakers, panelists, yang berbahagia Datuk Dr. Daud, Bakar, Associate Professor Dr. Fairooz, and Encik Taufik. Of course, thank you so much to all participants for being with us throughout this program. We have come to the end of the webinar. We end our session, we adjourn our session by reciting Tasbih Kafarah dan Surah Al-Nas. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you very much, Agrobank, for the opportunity.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you, Taufik. Thank you, Dr. Fairooz. Thank you.
Terima kasih.